I was chilling in the shack getting ready for the interview that I'm going to do with David Minster about the upcoming legislation with the ARRL. And I remember there was a really cool post over on Reddit, and I wanted to talk about it. So cue the throwback intro. So Reddit is everywhere, right? And of course, it's whenever you search for something, there's a Reddit post. And obviously, amateur radio, ham radio, both of them are slash those two names. Comes up a lot. And I got to say, I end up there often, right? When I'm looking for something, it comes up, right? So I do recommend you check them out, both r slash amateur radio and r slash ham radio. You probably have already seen it, but I really have always liked the format of Reddit, right? I like the fact that the person who gets the most updates is the one that you see, first. And so this is Zoe, and they say, getting discouraged with HF. There was 218 comments on this, so this is some good stuff. There's some good feedback in here. It seems like HF is a game of spending, and we're going to talk about the spending, but good news is not a lot of the posters actually focused on that. They kind of focused on, just how to be more active on the air, which I think is a good way to approach this, but I'm going to talk about that money. I got a 40 meter today, and everybody is running way more power than they probably need to. And on top of that, nobody respects spacing. I heard 4 stations all trying to step on each other. Go to another frequency, and some a-hole is running 6 gigawatts, bleeding way the heck over where they are transmitting. It's ridiculous. How am I supposed to compete with rich people who have more money than they know what to do with? But this is on a contest weekend when this individual posted this. So it's possible that they just didn't know. Contest weekends, probably not a great time to be on 20 meters or 40 meters or whatever. So let's see what type of recommendations they had for Zoe. And the first one is from UK Full, be the person people are looking for. Now, this is in reference to things like Soda and Poda, where you are the station that people want to talk to. This got the most upvotes, 138, which is a lot, right, for a post like this. I get plenty of context QRP because I'm doing Soda activations. Then the 1.21 gigawatts, good reference, stations are spending that power looking for me. Fantastic. Zoe replies, I live in Michigan. It's about as flat as it can be here. So that's where parks, bunkers, churches, scout jamborees, islands, worldwide flora and fauna. There's a ton of ODAs on the airs, if you will. And I love this from N4IJB says, I'm sleepy and read your post as nuns on the air. And man, that's funny because I laughed at the thought of, I would absolutely listen to a net of nuns on the air or participate in a special event station. I would too. I would find that really interesting. A few years back, there was a group of nuns in a convent who would tweet during the Super Bowl. It was the most wholesome thing on Twitter ever. I bet that was. Now, a lot of people are mentioning POTA because I think, and maybe they don't go into detail on it, we'll find out. Times are tough, right? Younger folks aren't really owning homes. They're renting a lot. Likely, they don't have a lot of space to put up an antenna or just maybe prohibited. A lot of people are living in HOAs because there really isn't some other good options in some towns. So people are looking towards more like radio events where they do radio for a little while and then they come home. And Parks on the Air is a great example of that. So is Summits on the Air. Reminder for everybody doing POTA, you can do POTA from in your car. All it really takes is a mag mount on the roof of your vehicle with a ham stick, maybe 20, 40 meters or 10 meters, something along those lines, and a radio, of course, that will handle it. And then you'll be on the air, and you can actually do an activation with that. Again, you only need 10 contacts for Parks on the Air. I'll have a link in the video description so you can check out more about Parks on the Air. And if you want to watch me do an activation, my funny ways of doing them, I'll drop a link for that as well. Love doing POTA. I just don't love the half an hour to an hour drive to get to the location. Then another half an hour setting up equipment, taking it down. Another point why you should probably just do it from in your car. You can absolutely just activate with a mobile antenna. Now, the Mead Man comments, we have at least 90 summits in Michigan that are part of Summits on the Air. We also have 353 parks on the air program. Yeah, so totally recommend you check out the POTA map and see what's in your area and then go after that. A Goose on the Loose said, I'm in Michigan too and was on 40 all evening running 50 watts with no problem. I made a bunch of contacts. It was great. It's too easy to just learn CW so you don't have to deal with those lids on single sideband. Not wrong. CW is a commitment. If you're going down that road, I highly recommend you look at groups like Long Island CW Club. They're one of the best for learning Morse code and how to actually be proficient and use it to make contacts effectively. So check that out. Now, this dips into the price a little bit, but Zenzer here says, I'm 20 watts with a G90 on a mobile, 100 watts when on the IC7300 in the shack. I get worldwide contacts some days and barely get out other days. That's true regardless if you spent tens of thousands of dollars on your shack. You're going to have the same problem. The thing that has helped me most is having the ability to move antenna positions around and look for patterns in the bands. There are some definite super loud rag-chew stations out there, and knowing to stay away from them helps. This is true. This is a good recommendation. Now, man with a funny username, Red, White, and Jew, just because stations appear to be overlapping where you are does not necessarily mean that they are overlapping where they are. This is a very, very important point. Remember, everyone has different geography, so everyone hears something different across the bands. For example, you could have BC, CA, Florida, and Maine all going at the same time on the same frequency. They can't hear each other. That's true. But if you're in Kansas, roughly in the middle of where those people are, and you can hear all four at the same time, nobody's doing anything wrong there. That is true. We can't hear that station, so we're checking that the frequency is not in use, and it isn't from where we can hear. But someone, say, in the middle of the country might hear all of us at the same time. That is a reality. That's radio propagation. That's literally how it works. It's sometimes unfortunate, but for you in Kansas, being in the middle of the country and all those exterior perimeter of the country are aiming towards the middle, you actually can make a lot of contacts that way. Nerman Padiz, try Digimodes. You can reach around the world with 5 watts. And that was backed up by Regular City. When those high-powered stations are drowning me out, there's a huge pileup. I shift to FT8 or FT4, and I choose who to QSO with. There is also JSA Call. There's a ton of fun with WinLink. There's all kinds of digital modes that you can explore to your heart's content. VAR AC, another good one. I'll try to remember to drop links for those so you can check them out. But yeah, great recommendation. Really like that one. But let's talk about all those rich hams with their multi-tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars in amateur radio equipment. Well, this hobby leans older. We know that. And these are a lot of people that have pensions, and they have prioritized spending some of their money that they've saved for a long time towards amateur radio. So yes, that exists. Contests on contest weekends. That's where you get a lot of really powerful stations where people have spent a lot of money to do what it is they love, and that's operate for as long as they can during a weekend. That's like their jam. That's what they're into. Parks on the Air isn't like that, so, go nuts with Parks on the Air. But just also remember that if you're younger or you're just getting started in a hobby, there's always going to be somebody that has spent more money and prioritized spending money towards that, that direction. I myself, I've spent a lot of money on amateur radio, as I've talked about on this video, but I didn't start out there. And certainly I wasn't as financially comfortable when I started out as an amateur radio operator. I started out with much less expensive radios. I started out on QRP, on HF. Not necessarily recommended, right? We say 100-watt radio is where you kind of want to start when you get into HF, but I made a go at it, and I had a lot of fun, and it has allowed me to continue to be passionate about the hobby and stay as engaged in it as I am. Now, I know the financial world is crazy. Inflation is through the roof, and, the folks who are a bit older might have lived in a time where their money went a little bit further, and they saved that money, and now they've got a little bit more to deal with. But we can't be upset at them because they lived in a time where things were a little bit better off and they were able to take advantage of that. We can be a little bit sad that we weren't necessarily alive at that time and don't have a Scrooge McDuck vault full of radios, but there are things you can do. So what are we going to talk about? Well, let's walk through some of my favorite radios that to get you started, and then we'll talk about some of the ones that are available in the market, like if you went to Ham Radio Outlet or Gigaparts or DX Engineering. I'll try to drop links in the video description. Maybe you can get yourself a discount or find something on sale. So first and foremost, QRP Labs. We've talked about the QMX radios. The QMX Plus is an all-band radio. These are basically $200 radios if you have QRP Labs assemble them for you and shipped to your door. It's QRP, it's 5 watts, but it's still completely usable. You'll still have a lot of fun with it. I totally recommend you check out QRP Labs and QMX. There's There's the one I like a lot. Some people often ask, like, hey, if you're going to go get a QMX, what do you do kit-wise? And they've got a couple of different options. So it's $50 to assemble, so we're at $150 now. And you pick a version if you want 80 through 20 meters, or you want 60 through 15, or 20 through 10. So during a high solar cycle, 20 through 10 is kind of going to be a sweet spot, but kind of middle of the road going with the 60 through 15 is going to serve a lot of people really well as we start to dip to the low end of the solar cycle, and 40 meters and 80 meters starts to be a lot more useful. In a couple of years, probably about 4 or 5, then 80, 40 are going to be hot bands in the evening, and you might want to consider that. So keep that in mind. Now, the next radio to talk about is the Xiegu G90. And I actually do have a coupon code for this. If you use the code JoshNass, you can get a discount against a G90 bundle if you're so inclined, or really anything on the website. The way to look at these is that they bundle it a lot, and we happen to be finding it on a decent bundle day. So $439, you can get a G90, you can get the digital interface adapter for USB to a laptop or a computer for doing digital modes, and the sled. If you're going to do digital modes at 20 watts or around there, you're going to want that sled because it has a fan underneath it that keeps the radio cool. $439 is not inexpensive, but you will be hard to beat this radio and the functionality it provides at that price. It's still batting way above its average. It is a very good radio to check out if you are looking for something that can kind of be an entry radio. Just keep in mind you're going to have to buy a battery or a power supply to go along with it. I'll try to drop links for those as well. Next, good old used radios. And the 7300. Right now, the 7300 Mark II was announced at Ham Fair in Tokyo. So there are people who are getting rid of their much beloved, probably often also well taken care of 7300s. Now, I've shown this in the past, but let me show you how to figure out what the price of used radios is going for. I searched for IC 7300, but after I did that, I clicked on Advanced over here on the side. And when you do that, you can select completed items and sold items. Make sure you hit sold items and you have that on, and then hit search. That's only going to show you what the radios actually sold for. So one just yesterday sold for $780. There was another one for $740. $1,200 is a bit expensive. $830, and then down the line. So, oh, hey, wow, is this parts? Oh, this is Japan. Okay. Maybe don't buy a receiver, a transmitter located in China, Japan. Maybe don't do that because the band spread might be a little bit different. So if you're in the U.S., buy a U.S. radio, UK, Australia, you get the idea. But there's a couple of really good deals out there that you can find in good condition. I'm using eBay as an example, but if you join our Discord, we have a swaps group that you can find really good deals for radios, as well as QRZ. They have a marketplace. There's a number of ways to find used amateur radios out there. So do consider used radios if you're starting out and you want to go, get something a little bit nicer. Maybe a couple years old, but you're still going to get a good radio. Now, what about deals in the retail space? So you're talking retail prices. The company's getting the most they can for these radios, not necessarily giving the savings to you, but there are often times that you can find decently priced radios. And I would say, look at the Yaesu 710 Field. It is $954 right now. It looks like there is a coupon. Yeah, there is a manufacturer $120 coupon and then an HRO summer savings coupon for $125, which takes a $1,200 radio and brings it down to $954. Not a bad deal at all. That's a good radio. They do go down in price. Retail radios do come down in price, particularly when you're talking about like Black Friday, or on the weekend of a very popular hamfest like Hamvention. And to give a shout out to our friends over at DX Engineering, if you go to their website and you click on Hot Deals, a lot of websites have this same thing. You can see what has coupon codes available for it. So FTDX10, fantastic radio. Not super cheap, but if we keep going down the list, we can often find an HF radio. 9 pages. Oh boy. Let's use the filters. What do we say about filters? Let's see. We want a definitely in stock, so let's do that, get results. We're going to go to transceivers and receivers right here, and we're going to go to, let's go base transceivers, just, to get a baseline here. Let's see what we got. So a 718 all-mode radio, 7610, kind of an expensive radio, not where you start out, neither is the Kenwood. 7300, so we were just looking at 7300s on eBay, and they were going for what, $600, $700. There was a couple that were $800 and $900. And if you wanted just a factory fresh radio, $999 once you factor in the $100 rebate. Yaesu 710, we expect to see the prices the same. And yeah, there you go. So there are a couple of used options, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, $1,000 is kind of expensive. Well, let's see if we can find an 891. This is a POTA Darling. This is one of the most popular POTA radios, I think, out there. 100 watts. It's $689. I think that's actually what I paid for mine like 5 years ago. And I've used it a couple of times on POTA activations, but it's a great mobile radio too. The head unit right in my vehicle, and I use it connected to a screwdriver antenna. You could use a hamstick if you wanted. And I've activated a ton of POTAs with that setup, not just the way it is right now, but actually in my vehicle, which, makes that effective too. So don't despair, Zoe. I hear, that's a good question. And I bet there's a lot of people that start out in just amateur radio, but other hobbies too, where they look around and go, well, you guys have spent a lot of money at this. You're like kicking my butt. You shouldn't ever feel like keeping up with the Joneses when it comes to amateur radio, because at some point, particularly when you get into HF, there's like really only so much antennas that you can cram into a property, particularly if you live in a family home in the suburbs. I tell my wife that, but I still end up jamming an antenna here and there and all over the place. So just keep in mind, yes, it can be difficult, but you shouldn't let that stop you. Don't be jealous of other people, although I don't think that's the case. I think you're just more frustrated. Find something that works for you. Try digital modes. I recommend you do consider CW. Go do POTA and SOTA. And a thought came to me when I was making this video. The contest situation. So usually contests are broken up by power, like 100 watts, QRP, or amplified stations, but it never factors in how much money you've put into your setup. It would be kind of interesting, almost like they do race cars. There's different classes, how much money basically you've spent on your vehicle, or what type, forced induction, naturally aspirated, whatever. There's a million different categories for racing. It would be nice if there was a category for the sub $1,000 shack or something along those lines. And yes, it would all be, an agreement that we all make that, yes, we will follow the rules, because we're not going to go inspect each other's shacks. Maybe that's why nobody's ever done it, because, well, yeah, I'm definitely doing a, sub 1 pound, contest station. I get it. But anyway, it's a thought. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out all the links in the video description. Thank you for the support. And until I talk to you again, 73.